Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today on Beyond Real Estate with Jalen, where we strive to edutain, that is, educate a little and entertain more. Here we discuss topics surrounding #dadlife, briefly talk about a current hot topic within the real estate industry, and end with business bookend before getting to know someone just a little bit better. Thank you for joining us on another week for Beyond Real Estate with Jalen. That is neither of our names, that's both of our names combined. And this week, have a special guest in Glen. And Glen, before we get into it too much, how about instead of me introducing you, you chat a little bit about what it is you do?
Thanks, Nick. That's a great idea. I'm a certified real estate appraiser here in Southern California in the Pasadena, San Gabriel, Los Angeles area. I've been doing it for almost 30 years, and I love networking and talking to realtors and spending time talking real estate. I can talk for hours and hours about real estate, so I just appreciate the opportunity to come on and share my opinion about all the issues that we're talking about.
Sure. And for the novice real estate individual out there, appraisers come in handy to value homes. So they're the ones that come in with the objective information to say, I'm not attached to this thing emotionally at all. I'm just looking at the facts being the facts, and this is what the home's worth. So that's Glen in a nutshell in the real estate space. But yeah, we'll get into the appraising piece here shortly. But before we get to that, Jalen, #dadlife, what do we have up on tap this week?
Yeah, well, this week we're going to be talking about the so important getting good grades. Why it's important, is it important? Who actually knows? That's what we're here to discuss and give our opinions on. So if you have any thoughts yourself or you completely disagree with one of us, feel free to let us know. We'll happily battle you out in the comment section. Just kidding. We're very passive individuals. But the first question that I wanted to bring up for today in regards to that topic is, why do you think it's important for kids to get good grades in school? What's the inherent or actual value? I think a lot of us understand the importance of what it can do for college, but is there something more to it? Nick, on that first kind of topic, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it becomes an intrinsic thing, right? An intrinsic value that I think does carry weight and becomes an important piece to determine. That's certainly one way we've determined, are we on the right path or not, is what kind of grades we get. I think ultimately what's more important than consistently being able to get good grades is the habits that get developed within that, right? If you're getting good grades, usually it's because of a byproduct, because you've set yourself up with the systems and the habits to study for something on a regular basis. And I think ultimately that's really the more important takeaway versus saying I was a straight A student, because I think we can all relate to being in class with that kid that you're just like, dude, the kid never studies or he never does that. So ultimately, what does that set up for someone long-term? But we've also probably been around some of those students that absolutely work their butt off and they've earned every single thing that they've got. And again, I think that's the bigger takeaway. Glen, you have more experience though, from a parenting background than Jay or I. What is your opinion on this situation?
It's really interesting. I was that straight A student. Thank you very much. I did not have to study a lot. So that was just something that, I was blessed with that or cursed with that, whatever you want to view it. But my two daughters are actually very different. My one is very intellectual as far as schoolwork, very good grades. She's now a UX designer for Meta. Just a total goober. I tease her all the time. And my youngest daughter is smart as a whip, but her grades weren't as great, very average student grades-wise. So I think it's actually really important. It really is important, you're right, Nick, to understand, be able to understand a topic, to be able to go through a process to master something and accomplish something. So I think it's really important on that front. I think when you see somebody not getting good grades, you want to dig into why, because there are people who are incredibly intelligent who are just bored by school and they don't get good grades because they just don't want to. Yeah. So, but it's definitely a great, for the people who aren't those outliers, it's really important just to attempt to master something, to put the effort in, and to realize what you have to do to accomplish something, because it certainly carries on into life. No question about that.
So, Glenn, I have a follow-up real quick with regards to the disparity between your two kids growing up. You said one didn't get as good grades. How did you view that at the time? Did you see it as something's wrong with her, or did you bribe in any way to say, if you do that, you'll get a reward?
We tried different things throughout, but I think that we did realize that they're just different. I think it's important to understand that every child is different, and you get the first child and you're like, okay, now I have it figured out. And you get the second child and you start trying to do the same thing, and it doesn't work, right? So we did learn to really not emphasize, we don't want you to be like your sister. We want you to do the best that you can do, whatever that is. So I learned a lot of that in coaching too. I coached a lot of softball and had to learn with different personalities, different strengths and weaknesses, and to adapt to how different people are. So it's a good standard, it's a good goal, but you do have to understand the different personalities and strengths and weaknesses of the individuals.
Yeah, and that was something that I'm glad that you touched on that, because I think that there's definitely, you have to understand that everyone has different strengths, and so the book learning, or the way that the school system is set up, is, can you regurgitate facts back at me and in an efficient manner? And so some people it's just not what they can do. They're more conceptual in their thinking. And so to say, this person wasn't able to recite when whatever piece of information was first came out, it's just unnecessary for maybe someone that is more conceptual. So, and I like that coaching analogy, because it's almost like, hey, this person crushes it as a home run hitter or a contact hitter, and this person is a better pitcher. So you're not going to say, well, all of their value is because they're not a good hitter, though. So they just don't really have a place on our team. It's like, well, they could be the best pitcher in the country then. So I like that was something that was touched on. Now, with both of your kids having two different interactions with the school system, of one being really good at the traditional way of learning in America, what were kind of those impacts for the long run for the both of them? Did your younger daughter go more in the route of maybe like a artistic or conceptual thinking, seeing how your older daughter got really into the, what that stereotypical smart person does? They go work for a software company and just blow the world up with these amazing things. How is that as a kind of two different paths?
Well, for me, it was challenging as a parent to recognize that, because you don't think about that, right? When you're going to I'm going to raise my kids and we're going to do this, this, and this, and it's just not the same. So it did affect my younger daughter early on. She did have some issues with that, being compared, but not only to her sister, but I, of course, teased my kids and bragged to them about how good a student I was. So it definitely affected my younger daughter, I think. And she is definitely just on a different path. It's not the college path. But I really think that even in society, we've kind of taken that approach. And it's made me value the, understanding who people are and what their strengths and weaknesses are. Is much more important than everybody should go to college kind of thing. Because the college learning, which again, my older daughter was great at, she even did better than me when I was in college. Because at that point, I didn't put the effort in. But I just think it's important for people to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are and what their interests are, and to pursue those. Because when my younger daughter is doing something she's really into, she's one of the top students. But if she's not into it, she's not going to be one of the top students. It's just the way it is. And that's just her, her personality, her DNA, really.
Yeah. And I like that there's that. I think that you touched on another thing of kind of making those adjustments as a parent, especially from one kid to another. Because with both of my boys, the first one, just a saint of, he can do his own thing all day and he's super relaxed. And the other one is, he's younger, but at the same time more needy and needs that literal and metaphorical hand holding consistently. So but I don't think either of my kids have to worry about me bragging about my grades back in high school or college. It's like I was a college dropout, so it's just being like, yeah, I don't think this is for me.
So Jay, let me
Yeah.
put you on the spot with that experience. How do you value good grades based on your experiences in terms of relating that to your kids?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a lot of what Glenn was saying of understanding that they might have different interests than what grades can necessarily get you. Maybe they are more interested in that hands-on learning. So they're going to be a trade is going to be something that's more their speed, and that's not saying it's a slower speed. It's just a different speed. So understanding that that's a route that one of them can go down, and my wife and I have no problems with that being a reality for either one of them. I don't think them coming out, we were just like, and here's the label of rocket scientist. And here's, I don't know what this one's going to do. He's a little bit more crazy. So I think just kind of understanding that there's not a predetermined path that we think means success for them will allow us to go through and support their life. So ultimately just make them the best person that they can be and the most successful person that they can be instead of any predetermined requisites. Yeah.
So I have a follow-up question for Glenn on that note. When it comes to a kid, and I know this is subjective, nonetheless, I want to hear your opinion on it. When it comes to a kid not getting as good of grades as another sibling, how do you come to the conclusion to say that's okay because I know that's their best? Like, how do you know a C is the best they could do or a B is the best they could do? Like, how do you interpret that as a parent having two different experiences?
Yeah, I think that's a real challenge, to be honest with you, especially if the first child is the one that does well in school. It's definitely a challenge, and you can't help but not handle it properly at the start. And for me, it came back to coaching. And then when I went to coaching clinics, they talk, they asked you, okay, how do you know if someone's giving their best today? And I made the point of, you don't. You have no idea what their best that day is, yeah. Right? You don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what's going on in their mind. You don't know anything. So, and it's the same with your kids, right? You know more what's going on in their life, but you don't know what their best is. It takes you a long time to learn that. So that's actually something that I'm going to use the word, I'm going to do a foreshadowing. I don't regret it, but I certainly wish that I had picked up on that sooner and handled it differently. And I don't know that you can prepare for that. I think sometimes life just happens that way. Mm-hmm. You have your preconceived notions about your kids and the grades in school and how you're going to raise them and what you expect from them. And I've become much more, I'm still demanding, but I'm not as strict as far as what my specific expectations are. And I would certainly do it differently if I, started over and did it again.
Sure. And that makes sense. I think anyone that's like, yep, I cruised through that one. Life was easy. I don't know what all these parenting books are for.
Yeah.
Nick, would love to hear your final thoughts, and Glenn, you too, because both of you guys have coaching backgrounds. So on that note, I think there's very easy comparables to the world of academics and coaching. What are some ways that you've found that does allow for you to foster the best performance from your players and for any parents at home, their kids? Any direct correlation between those two that you guys can think of?
Glenn, you want to take that one first?
Sure. I mean, I think it's really taking the time to learn, about the individual, like learn about your child and try and understand as soon as possible what their strengths and weaknesses are and how that affects them. Because if you're in the standard world of we want you to get good grades and we laud good grades and give them achievement certificates and things like that, learning what the other kids excel at and learning how to let them express that, I think, is really important. So if I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I always tell them I would completely redesign how the schools teach, because of how people learn and what their strengths and weaknesses are. But as a parent, just the sooner you recognize that and then figure out a way to help them achieve whatever their best is and get them to where they're feel confident, because the more confident they are, the better they're going to do. So, and that applies, that's again, the sports analogy. I feel that sports are actually really important to teach life lessons. And that's why I keep going back to those. So.
Nice. I love that confidence bit, that supporting so that they have the confidence. Cause I think that's where a big disconnect is too, is if your kid's not confident, or a player's not confident, then they're not giving their full 100%. So that's a very easy tweak not a very simple, not easy tweak to make of how can I make this person more confident, which is that me spending that extra hour every night on that one subject they just really struggle with, so they better understand it. Or for the coaching, do I need to coach them up on one or two aspects of their game? Nick, I think we have a good, about as good as you can in a 10 to 15 minute segment on this, but I'll give you final thoughts with that coaching question right back at you.
Yeah, just real quick, I'll piggyback on the last statement made about confidence. I think it's a characteristic we all understand to be very important, super hard to build up, and very easy to tear down, right? And that goes for the sports and the kids. It's once you start demeaning, hey, you're not as good as so-and-so, and now you've just crossed that line of comparing them to someone else, whether it's a sibling or another student in their class. Again, it's beyond their control. You don't need them to be like another kid. You need them, and Glenn already touched on this numerous times, what's the best version of you can be? And what are the systems that need to be put in place? Because maybe those systems are a little bit different. Maybe you're not that morning person that can wake up at 5 a.m. to study before a test. Maybe you need to put in that time in the nighttime so you can sleep in the morning. But it goes back to, again, what Glenn said of those individual programs. I was a huge believer in that side of things when it came to the soccer world, of how, and it was built into our curriculum, is giving those individual player profiles. And how do I cater to what Jalen likes most as a center midfielder? That's different than Glen as an outside back. And kids are no different. Your kids are no different. They're still a kid. They're just in a different environment. And I think that's an important aspect for all parents to be mindful of, is stop comparing them against other people and start comparing them against that version of what is their best look like, and try to navigate, adapt, improvise. A lot of it's improvising, I'm sure. Haven't been there yet, but I can only assume that it's like, yeah, that didn't work. I need to do something else.
Versus like, coach, change. get this kid out of here. We need to change.
Right. So that's my final thoughts. And guys, for those listening out there, give us your thoughts. If something really works, let us know. We'd love to hear that, because I think all of us just get better by sharing information. So maybe something's worked for you, clicked for you, and you're just like, try this. Share it in the comments below. We're going to take a short little break, and then we are going to come into our real estate roundup, moving down that appraisal path. So hang tight, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, just wanted to let you know, regardless of how you want to learn about the real estate market, I have you covered. If you want to read about it, I've got a blog. If you want to listen to it, you're doing it right now. You can watch me on my YouTube channel. And if you want to experience it, I can help you personally navigate the real estate space. Regardless of how you want to stay informed or experience real estate, I got you covered. Just reach out at your convenience. Hopefully we'll talk soon. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us after that short little break. We are now into our second segment of this episode, which is Real Estate Roundup, and specifically pertaining to the appraisal world. Glenn is a specialist in this. This is what he's done for over 30 years. So Glenn, give us your take for how appraisals affect sellers specifically when they're thinking about selling or making improvements on their home. What comes to mind?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to remember about the appraiser, and something that's really been forgotten in the last 10 years or even more, is that the appraiser is really the only independent person in the whole process. Everybody else involved in the process has skin in the game, right? And it's not good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. So the appraiser is meant to be objective, third party, disinterested. I tease people, I don't care. I don't care if your house sells, right? But it's true. you don't have to be that cold about it like I am, but it's true. So as the seller, the main thing you want to make sure is that you have an agent who understands the appraisal part of it, so that you don't run into an issue at the end. Because the problem that always pops up with the appraisal is always at the end when you're ready to close, because they never order the appraisal to the end. So any bank executives listening, order it sooner in the process. Thank you.
Yeah.
But finding a real estate agent who truly understands what your property is worth and what potential valuation issues, if you have a standard property that's easy to appraise. Some are easier than others, right? But if you have a lot of unique features, you have some custom stuff, you have a pool, you have a guest house, you have a tennis court, you have a helicopter landing pad, whatever your thing is. Anytime there's more uniqueness, the challenge becomes more significant for both the listing agent and the appraiser. So having a listing agent who understands that and understands the appraisal process is certainly something you want to look out for especially if you have a really unique property or an area that's got a lot of variety in it. Some areas are fairly homogeneous as far as the homes, and other areas have a tremendous variety, both age, level of updating, condition, quality, lot size, views, amenities. It gets pretty crazy. Yep. So that's where you get affected, and it's always at the end that you get affected.
Okay. So how about in terms of those improvements? Because I think a lot of sellers say, okay, if I improve X, I should get more money for my house. So specific question for you, what are the improvements sellers sometimes choose to make that you're like, as an appraiser, you're saying that's not going to improve the dollar amount that you're going to get
right.
back?
Yeah. The biggest thing is there's really almost nothing that you get dollar for dollar back. So if you're looking to improve your house, to get more money out of selling it, there's not really much you can do on that front. I think the things that the real estate agents suggest, and is the best idea, is declutter, clean up the landscaping a little bit, fresh paint, things that don't cost a lot of money, that get just the presentation and just get people to be less critical of the home and more willing to pay, whatever the market value is. As far as improvements go, it depends on your neighborhood, right? If you're in a $500,000 neighborhood, I don't know if those exist anymore, but if you're in a $500,000 neighborhood, right? So putting in, a guest house or an exquisite pool with a lagoon, and that the people that buy there aren't looking for that. So you really lose money big time on those. And even in a custom market, you might not get full dollar out of those, but you'll get more in a custom market or a higher end market than you would there. So it's good to recognize where you're at to decide on what you're going to do. Because if yours is so far superior to everything, people will go to a different neighborhood to get that. This location is still the most important factor is location, right?
Yeah.
Nothing more important than that.
So I've heard a few times too that and correct me if I'm wrong, and would love your opinion on this more than anything, is you don't want to be the worst house in the neighborhood, and you also don't want to be the most expensive looking house in the neighborhood. You kind of just want to be right in the middle of everything. Is that true, or does that still vary from case to case?
Well, yeah, the more in the norm you are, right? The more typical you are for the neighborhood, the easier it is to sell. The easier it is to find comparisons to determine what it's really worth. Being the worst house in the neighborhood isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you're actually get pulled up.
Oh.
It's hard. Like in appraising, we actually have to bracket our value, our final value, even before we make adjustments. Mm-hmm. So when you're the worst, we actually ideally will find something worse than yours, similar to yours, and better than yours, and then reconcile, to demonstrate how the market's reacting to that. Mm-hmm. And that's the challenge, both on when yours is the worst or when yours is the best. When yours is the best is the hardest, because you have to demonstrate that that local market is willing to pay that price. And sometimes there's just a maximum price in that neighborhood, and it's just not going to go over it, until the market goes crazy like it's been lately. But there were markets that were just stuck at a number. It's like, we're not going above 800,000 in this market. It's just not going to happen no matter what you do to your house.
Yeah.
And then, then the market went crazy. But I actually just had that there's an area in Arcadia, unincorporated in El Monte School District that is mostly entry-level homes. Average square footage is, 1,400 square feet. And there's just no market there for big giant homes like above 2,800, 3,000 square feet, because they'll live somewhere else. They want to live there because it's affordable, right? And that doesn't meet their criteria. So that one was the thing where it had a ceiling for the market.
And go ahead, Jay.
Sure. I'm just going to throw in an example here in Denver. There was in Littleton, so one of the smaller towns out here in the Denver metro, their average home prices, and this is speaking to what Glenn says, I can easily say it's the same way no matter what part of the country you are. This neighborhood averaged $600,000 per home, and there was this like $1.2 million home with just in the middle of it all. And that thing in the middle of a hot housing market that we had before it started kind of leveling out, it sat on the market for about 3 months. And I think it was, and to Glenn's point, if you can afford a $1.2 million home, you don't want to live among $600,000 homes. You're like, I want to be the best or right in that area of the other $1.2 million homes. So no matter what price points you're looking at and what part of the country you are, this is just going to be a reality for you. So definitely take what Glenn is saying and understand that before you start putting in a pool in an area where pools aren't very common in that neighborhood. But Nick, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, Glenn touched on a little hot topic of living space. And in California especially, ADUs are popping up. I know a lot more. And people want to maximize that living space. So before I even try to go down that rabbit hole, Glenn, what are your experiences from an appraisal standpoint based on people trying to max out the selling price and saying, hey, I should be able to count that or what have you?
Right. Yeah, that's actually probably the biggest area of conflict, disagreement, or whatever you want to call it, between appraisers and the rest of the world. Sellers, agents, that type of thing, is what counts as living area. And the biggest problem, I think, with all of that is that everybody assumes that if it doesn't count as living area, then it doesn't get value. And that's not true. It gets value, but it gets value elsewhere in the appraisal. So living area is the home that you can go to without going outside or going through your garage or whatever. So it's contiguous, it's heated, it's air conditioned. If you're in areas that require heat and air conditioning, and you don't have to go out somewhere to do it. And it's also generally above grade. Now, you got in hillsides, you get a little trickier there, but Fannie Mae just went on April 1st of this year to requiring appraisers for Fannie Mae appraisals to measure according to ANSI, ANSI standards, which actually defines what counts as living area. And it's not just living area, it's above grade versus below grade as well. So the common things that don't count as living area, but they still contribute value, are ADUs, guest house, pool house, studio, bonus, office room, recording studio at Michael Jackson's house, that kind of thing. So I appraised one of his houses that had the recording studio many years ago. So, and again, just by definition, if it's not where you live, it becomes an amenity. So they still contribute value. But the thing that I find the most interesting is, as real estate agents always want the highest price per square foot, but by including a guest house or a pool house or an ADU, they're actually lowering the price per square foot when it goes as sold because they have the wrong square living area for the property. So it's, and the market generally generally understands and recognizes that the guest house or pool house, while it's a great amenity and they'll pay for it, it's not living area. It's how big of a house do you want? I want my house to be 1,500 square feet or 2,500 square feet. Yep. Or I want it to have a den and a family room because I want to be able to do this in that room, do that in that room. So, and of course the big thing obviously after COVID was everybody needs a Zoom room, right? You need a room that's away from everything else, whether it's an extra bedroom or a den that's not next to everything else, whatever. It's, you need a room where you can have a little, off the beaten path.
Yep.
So the other things that count as value, ADU, guest house, they're just an amenity. And then we, as appraisers, we still value them. We look at the market, we compare sales to determine, well, how much extra did they pay for that? So the ideal thing is when we find that paired sale, right?
Yep.
This house and this house are fairly similar. You'd love them to be identical, but this one had the pool, this one didn't. This one had the guest house, this one didn't. What did that one sell for? What did that one sell for? So it's not always that easy, but so for me, when I value ADUs in particular, because they become a big deal, I try to determine how much to find an ADU sale, and then how much extra did they pay for that ADU, but then also how big was that ADU? What did it have, right? Was it a garage conversion ADU, or which now you've lost the value of the garage and then gain the ADU, so your net gain is still less, or was it a brand new 500 square foot ADU in the back, or 800 square foot 2-bedroom ADU in the back, that type of thing.
Yep.
And then I actually figure out the price per square foot of that improvement. So if that ADU was worth 100,000 or 200,000, whatever the number happened to be, divided by the price per square foot, because the age of the ADU, the size of it, makes a difference. So a brand new 800 square foot ADU is worth more than a garage conversion ADU. On that front. So
and we were initially going to go into the buyer's kind of side of things, but I think it's more interesting talking about these kind of quirky one-off stuff. Michael Jackson, if he had an amusement park in the backyard, I don't know how you even start to be like, well, okay, so Disney World costs this amount of dollars. And it's like, no, that's the only comparable though. So for things like those ADUs or tiny homes are a big thing. So maybe they're not directly connected to the land in one way or another, but they still have utilities to them. And so they're meant to be permanently fixed. How do those kind of situations play out when, whether you're a seller or a buyer, what you need to be kind of aware of in those kind of quirky situations and how you're going to value those as an appraiser?
Right. So yeah, again, it does apply as far as it's going to be worth more in an area where it's desired and accepted and can be afforded. And even within that, the most extreme, on the high end versus the most extreme on the low end generates different value. But like even the recording studio, if somebody will use that as something besides a recording studio, then it works fine. The amusement park, I actually turned down that appraisal when Michael Jackson was on trial. He was getting money for the attorneys, so that's when I did that one appraisal, and they asked me to do the other one, and I talked to other appraisers who were in that area who they all got asked to do that one. I don't know who ended up doing it, but but anytime you just have something unique, it's how much value does it add? Because the majority of the value, especially in Southern California, is in the land. Right, the land if a house sells for $1 million, I can tell you right now that land is probably worth $500,000-$700,000. So the majority of it's the land. Okay, and then you're just adding what size house can you build, and then what other amenities. And I found so far that most amenities, they're never going to be worth more than 10% of the overall value, and generally they're worth anywhere from around 5-ish to 7%, depending on what they are. So even a pool, when you analyze pool sales are generally, say, 10% higher, but part of it is the lot is bigger because it has a pool. So then when you take the pool itself is maybe 7%. So if you're in an $800,000 market, that's $60,000, right? So it's just important to remember that these are amenities, and that what people value the most is the house and the land. And so by adding an ADU, you're not going to add 40% to the value of your home, right? If you're worth $1 million it's not going to be 1.3 after the ADU. So you need to take that into consideration. It's just not going to happen. So it's a matter of what's location number one, living area number two, lot size number three. And everything else is an add-on that contributes, but the majority of the value is those three things. So it's not reasonable to expect them to be worth more, other than $1 million view, which there are $1 million views. That's a whole separate question.
Yeah, we have those. There's been quite a few with how much Denver's growing, and everyone wants to see the mountains. And there's been quite a few where people buy these $800,000 properties, and there's just a little berm just over, just to where they can still see the mountains, but there's a little berm, and then a new house goes right up on that berm, and you're like, well, there goes my view of the mountains.
Wait a minute.
So, yeah, I'm sure they enjoy that. But, I think that's a perfect way to kind of end it there. Tons of information that very fun and useful information for anyone that's looking to buy or sell a home in the next 5, 6, 12 months. Or even if you're thinking about putting it on tomorrow, be sure to reach out to a realtor that knows what they're talking about and that actually listens to the appraisers that they work with, so that you get a genuine understanding of what can be done to help sell your house for more, or if you're looking to buy a house with one of those kind of weird, quirky one-offs, make sure that you're not overpaying for it just because you have a pool, but it's in Montana, and you can't use that pool most of the year because it's frozen over, or you have to now install a heater. So just be aware of all of these things. Glenn, thanks for giving us a nice crash course on values of properties and how that works. I know I learned quite a few things. We are now going to take a brief break, and then we're going to jump right into Business Bookend, where today we're going to be talking about Power of Regret by one of our favorites, Daniel Pink. So join us back in just a few moments, and we will dive right into that. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast so far. Wanted to let you know about something free Nick and I are giving to every single one of our listeners, and that is HomeBot. HomeBot is a free monthly real estate digest. You can know the value of your home, or if you're looking for a home and don't want to be bombarded by realtors giving you calls and mortgage lenders, a free tool that lets you look at what is currently happening in your real estate market. Check the link below and be sure to sign up today. All right, let's jump back into Beyond Real Estate with Jalen. Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond Real Estate, and today we're going to be talking about The Power of Regret by Daniel Pink, a amazing book that I haven't read. We're just a little peek behind the blinds. We don't have time to read one book every single week.
But I have read it. I have read it.
Yes. We that's one rule we like to keep, is at least one of us has to have read it. But Daniel Pink has wrote just another amazing book, The Power of Regret. Really a book about how one can learn from their mistakes and turn them into success. So, Nick, being the one that has read it, what is some key takeaways that you gained from the book, and what are some of those that people can kind of implement in their own lives so that they can better harness the power of regret?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to first start off with anything groundbreaking other than to say regret is normal, right? You're not the only one to say, I wish I would have done that different, or whatever the case is with whichever situation is. With that being said, how we choose to handle it and how we choose to funnel and channel those emotions is, of course, where things can change for the better or keep you in the worse. And that's really what he tries to dive into, is saying, yes, we're all going to have it at some point, whether it's how you spent your time, whether it's a family situation, whether it's something you said. Number one, be human about it and forgive yourself. And part of forgiving yourself is saying sorry, simple as that, for maybe it's that situation. But at the end of the day, to not allow it to consume you. And I think that's the challenge of regretting sometimes, is we allow that moment to define you versus you to define that moment. We allow those regrets to we live there. We live in the past, and we continue to dwell on that regret versus say, how can I use what didn't go as well as I wish it would have, how can I use that to propel me moving forward? How can I use that as a learning moment versus that's the worst moment of my life and now I'm a failure for it? So that's probably the biggest thing that was a takeaway for me. Glenn, in terms of regret, what are some things that have stuck with you with your experiences with that topic?
Yeah, it was interesting. I haven't read the book, but I did, try to read a bit of a synopsis, just kind of about what the point of it was.
Sure.
And I did find it interesting that the point that he was making is not that to just always look forward and never learn from your mistakes. And that's something that I wish I did more and more, right? But that's causing me to do it more and more now. So that's, as I've gotten older, I have really learned to use things like that to improve my life, whether it's personal life, business life, how I do things, what I choose to do, what I choose not to do. And I thought that was really a great takeaway. I'm actually interested now in reading the book, reading more about him, his history in politics. My degree's in political science, so I have no desire to work in politics, but I enjoy the topics and I enjoy the mental exercise. So the regret topic of his, I think I was impressed by that.
Okay, nice. Jay, what comes to mind with this topic for this book?
Yeah, well, some of the things that just again, like Glenn doing some quick research is the most powerful motivator for change and how to harness regret almost as a way to make sure that you don't fall back into the ways that you were before, and instead using that as fuel and motivation to move forward and move past your previous your previous stumbles or falls. I think we've all had things where you're starting new in something, you learn about a new way to do it, and then you're like, that way is 10 times better. And you kind of get this sense of regret of like, I could have been doing it that way this whole time. My life would have been 10 times easier. Why didn't I just do that from the get-go? And it's like, well, you can kind of take that two different ways. You can either just view yourself as a victim and being like, well, I didn't do it that way, so now I'm a failure now, and this is I just messed up. Or you can use it as that it was inevitable that I wouldn't know everything, and so failure is inevitable, as you were saying, Nick, it being one of the core concepts of this book. And so using that as, there's a better way to do this, that's now just going to make me want to push even harder to continue to find the things that I could be doing better, or find different ways to do something that makes my life easier, or whatever task I'm doing more efficient. So I think that's a really cool concept to implement in your daily life, no matter what you're doing, whether that's a new hobby, being a parent, as we talked about, learning from one kid to the other, understanding that they're two different people, and learning from that along the way, and not just viewing yourself as purely a failure in that facet, but instead understanding that the only way that you fail is if you don't learn from that and kind of grow with it. Nick, so I know that he talks about clearly regret can be used as a powerful force for good in our lives. What were some of the concepts that you kind of took away of ways that he talks about implementing those, and how you can kind of make sure that is something that you can fortify yourself with whenever you do have those failures or you are experiencing regret? How can you actually take that and use it as a good, instead of just maybe learning from it? That's cool, but
right,
how can you actually use it?
Sure. Well, before I answer that question, you brought up a word, failure, and something that stuck with me from a prior coach. He mentioned failure is not a problem. How you handle failure can be a problem, right? If you don't deal with it, it's going to deal with you, and you're going to fail again. So I thought I just wanted to ring that in, because that's something that's always stuck with me. As you alluded to, failure is not the issue. How you handle it becomes the issue. But to answer that question, how can we use that regret? It can increase the likelihood for better decisions, right? If you use regret in the right way, it can increase performance. It can give you a deeper meaning of something if you know how to channel it. And I think to come to those conclusions with anything, you have to have self-awareness, right? You have to be mindful enough to take a step back and, again, not quickly define you with the outcome of I regret doing that and now that defines me. That I think all of us are guilty of doing to some extent, but it goes back to that self-awareness piece of saying that doesn't have to be the way forward. Similar to our first topic today was getting good grades. A grade tells you where you are at that point in time. It does not define where you're going to end up. And I think regret can be similar in that it gives you a snapshot of where you are. You feel bad for it and the feelings that come with it, but that doesn't have to define your future. You don't have to regret for the rest of your life. Again, you can start with the apology if it became something you said. It can start with the admittance of I was wrong and I need to do this moving forward. So it can be a new beginning versus an end. And again, it comes back to perspective and self-awareness to allow that to happen and to shape itself.
Yeah, and I think we've all seen those people that are those kind of double down people where you're like, you're so wrong in this. And they're just like, no, I'm not. And this is just who I am now. And you're like, you're making yourself a worse person. Just apologize for the one thing or just change that one aspect. Don't let it define you.
Right.
Like, just take a step back. You don't have to be that angry person slamming cupboards every time. It's like, just because you did it that one time and made everyone feel very uncomfortable doesn't mean that that's now how you have to handle every situation. And just being like, well, this is who I am. It's almost like a cop-out.
Yep.
Is really what he's pushing, it sounds like, is to just allow for regret to now become a personality trait or to define where you are and where you are going to be moving forward. You're now taking the lazy way out. You're saying, yep, this is the way that I handle it. I already know how to handle situations like this, and I'm just going to keep doing it. Even if after the fact, I regret that I acted that way. I think athletes, we've talked about sports and coaching. There's some athletes that you're just like, why are you like this? Like, why do you blow up? Why do you yell at the umpire? Why do you headbutt the other teammate? Why? It's some Zinedine Zidane reference from 2006. Why is this who you are? Like, you can just be a nicer person, but instead you fly off the handles every time. Glenn, I'd love to hear your perspective on having two kids that have, grown and are out of the house and moving on with their lives in that facet. How you can kind of help guide them when you see something like this coming from them. You're like, you see some a behavior that you're like, I don't want this to be something that defines you. What's one way that we can kind of take the concepts of this book and apply them to the people that we're in charge of for their well-being and becoming better people?
Yeah, I think actually Nick had a great point that was really, again, back just to the coaching of failure is normal, right? And it's how you view failure that makes a difference. So if you view failure as a learning opportunity, if you view failure as a way to see what not to do, then it can actually be a benefit for you. Meet the Robinsons is one of my favorite Disney cartoon flicks. Because it's all about that. It's all about, and they actually celebrated failure because that was a learning process. You actually learn more when you fail. You learn more when you do it wrong, unless you close your mind to the learning. So, for me, when your kids don't always listen to you, so you tell them lots of things, and I try to just be gentle breezes at this point in their life of just, giving them information so it bounces around their brain and hopefully comes out at some point. But the more you can teach that failure is not always a bad thing, the better it is, because it really is how you learn, and it's important to just have that perspective.
Nice.
Hey, I have a quick little 30-second story from a little skills session I did back when I was coaching. It was a 7-year-old. And so I was working with 7 and 8-year-olds on a Friday back in Colorado a number of years ago now. And this kid, he kept messing up. And I was like, Tristan, you need to make sure you have this technique. And he said, Coach Nick, my dad says you get better from mistakes. So I'm making mistakes. So he's like messing up on purpose because he said his dad said that exact thing. Hey, you get better from making mistakes, so make mistakes. So he kept doing it wrong on purpose. It was funny. He took that literally. So he was messing up.
That's the difference in how people learn and interpret things. There's some people that are very literal, and you tell them, and they just that's what they do. So that's what you have to learn as a coach is who's that way, and be careful on what you tell them.
Right. Absolutely.
Love that. Well, that on that cute little story note there, maybe not everyone purposefully do things wrong, but try your best and be okay if there is a mistake and learn from that mistake. Glenn, thank you for joining us today. But before we're going to let you go, Nick is going to put you on the hot seat, which is something that we did not tell Glenn to expect. And so there's going to be a few questions for you, and I'll let Nick take it from here.
Yeah. So, Glenn, we like to conclude our podcast with a few simple questions to get a snapshot of those we know, like, and trust with an activity we call the hot seat. So this is just inspired by the great late James Lipton. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask you a few questions. All we're looking for is the first word that comes to mind. Don't worry about right answers and wrong answers, just the first word, and then I'll ask the next question. There's only about 6 or 7 of them. So, you ready?
42. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Right. What is your favorite word?
No.
What is your least favorite word?
Now.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't even have a thought on that. Sound that I love. I love the sound of cheering at a sporting event.
What sound or noise do you hate?
There's so many of them. I have a much longer list of things that I don't like the sound of. Just repetitive, just repetitive noise that won't go away.
If you didn't do what you're doing today, what profession would you like to do?
The only guy I would ever trade jobs with would be Guy Fieri on Triple D.
And what profession would you never like to do?
I feel it was important for me to do as a young person and important for people to do, but I would never do it again. That'd be a server in a restaurant. That is really, really hard work and very ungrateful work. So I would never want to do that again. But I think it's a great learning place for people.
And before you die, where must you visit?
Well, the next thing on my list is I want to go see the glaciers in Argentina because I've seen the glaciers in Alaska, and that way I would get to do one in the north and one in the south.
Brilliant. That wraps up our hot seat for this edition. So, Glenn, thank you again for the time. Thank you for the insight.
My pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Jay, anything else?
Nope, that's all I have. That's just another week closer to being around the sun since we started this podcast, episode 21. Woo! It's now drinking age. We can go out and party now. It's time to switch it to explicit on all the podcast charts.
Yeah, right. Well, guys, thank you everyone for whoever's listening, wherever you're listening. If you're watching, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when and where that is. So thank you for joining us on another week of Beyond Real Estate with Jalen. Feel free to check us out online, and otherwise we'll catch you same time, same place next week.
Hey, thanks again for listening. If you want to hear more of Jalen McKenna, Colorado's mortgage dad, and his take on the Colorado real estate market, or just mortgages and mortgage news in general, check out the links below.
Also, check out the links below for more information on products, books, or references made in this podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.